কার? কেন? हाँ चलो, मैं फ्री हो जब। এটা কোন চুতিয়া সালে আবার? এই ভিসি অন কর, ভিসি অন কর। দেখ না, নিজের ভিডিও অফ কর, আবারটা দেখ। এ দেখ। এটা দেখ না, মেটার ডিপি দেখ। জানি না ডিপিটা কি ইয়ের মতো লাগছে পুরো। বুঝলি তো কিরম লাগছে? আয় হায় মাই কিউটি। देख लो, देख लो।
पता है मुझे।
কি সব সাউন্ড করছিস তুই?
Greetings everyone. I am Jashanpreet Kaur, member at Amicus Curiae, and I'll be the moderator of the session for today. I welcome you all to the session of the Presidency Dialogue series. On behalf of Amicus Curiae, I would like to welcome our guest speaker of the day, that is Devansh, sir. So before beginning with the session, I'll brief about general guidelines which are to be followed by everyone during the meeting. But please try to keep your videos on during the session. Keep yourself muted during the session. You can unmute and you can ask questions to the speaker during the question and answers round. If the speaker allows you to ask the questions in between, you can do so, but it will be up to the discretion of sir. I would like to give also a brief about the Amicus Curiae and about our guest speaker. The Amicus Curiae is the brainchild of several legal luminaries and eminent personalities across the country and the globe. It is a dream online platform which aims at proliferating legal knowledge and providing an ingenious understanding with cognizance of various fields of law to make sure that legal knowledge and experience penetrates to every nook and corner of the ever-growing legal fraternity. Through ambitious and studious legal brains across the country, TAQ aims at providing valuable contribution to contemporary legal issues along with development in the omnipresent field of law to the masses. We are also registered under Indian Partnership Act 1932 and Ministry of MSME Government of India. Amicus Curiae is presently the 8th largest legal website in India. We are connected to more than 20,000 law students from across 80 plus law schools in India. Talking about our guest speaker of the day, that is Devansh Shah. He is a young professional working as a policy consultant to the Honorable Minister of State for Communications, Government of India. He is recently appointed as the Y20 track chair for Future of Work, which includes the Industry 4.0, Innovation, and 21st Century Skills. Y20 summits will be held under the Indian presidency of G20. Young India Foundation also featured him on the 25 under 25 Young Indians Working in Politics and Policy list. Being active in public policy, he emphasizes of working at the grassroots level, where the need for betterment is felt. His passion towards working for the last citizen has built him to what he is today. Now, with the permission of our esteemed speaker, I seek to begin the session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me today. It's indeed a pleasure to be here. And there's a lot of young people here. I'm very excited about today's session. So, how do we go about this? Do you want me to start addressing the crowd immediately, or there is what is the way you want to take this forward?
So you can take forward the session the way you like it.
Okay, great. So the topic for today that I've been given is balancing development and sustainability between the G20 nations. So I'm just going to speak about that a little bit. I haven't had a lot of time, but I've put together a little presentation because I've learned visual aids always work better. So let me just present. I don't think I'm okay. I think. Presenting is disabled. If you could please help me out with the same. Okay, yeah, it works now. Can everybody see my screen?
So,
Yeah. Okay. Great. Yeah, the agenda for today is balancing economic growth and environmental sustainability in G20 nations. So this is what I'm gonna. This is what we're sort of going to be. That's the journey for today's talk as such. We're just going to look at G20 nations. We're going to move on to a look between the economic growth and environmental sustainability. How basically is it an oxymoronic relationship, or is it something that can be synonymous? We'll be moving from that to environmental challenges that are currently faced by the G20 nations. What are the efforts that the nations have taken to combat these challenges? What policies are, how environmental policies have either slowed down or, expedited our economic growth. And we'll end with how India, because again, India has taken the presidency of G20 this year. So how is India leading the entire initiative or the entire sort of charge to make the world a clean and a green place? So I'm just going to quickly run through with an introduction to G20 nations. I doubt anybody here hasn't heard of them, but basically G20 was founded after the Asian financial crisis, where a bunch of finance ministers and central bank governors came together to make it an economic forum to discuss financial issues. But they learned that multilateralism is something that wasn't working, and it still to a certain extent hasn't been. So to come out of the idea of a UN where certain powerful nations had all the authority to do something, they decided to form an organization where everyone would have a say, and that's where G20 was sort of born. Today, if you look at the G20 nations, they represent around 85% of your GDP, 75% of trade, and 67% of your population. Now, when we talk about environment, environment in particular, what happens in these G20 nations? So, 70% of the global plastic production happens in these G20 nations. 44% of your coal electricity comes from these G20 nations. You have 80% of renewable energy coming from these G20 nations. So, these group of nations are very important when it comes to taking any decision that can have a wide-reaching, impact. Any decisions that are taken at the end of the G20 summits are something that everyone globally looks forward to, because it can either make or break, century-changing decisions. So we'll quickly, move on to relationship between our environmental sustainability and economic growth. Now, the one thing that I want to say that before we move forward is that the COVID-19 pandemic sort of exposed the fragility of our interconnected world. It highlighted that there is a need for a resilient and inclusive recovery. It sort of told us about the urgency of the climate crisis. That how it's become an existential threat to humanity and nature. So something that our honorable prime minister once said has always struck with me, that fighting the climate doesn't really climate change calls for innovation, cooperation, and the willpower to make these changes. So this year, when we see that India has taken on the presidency, that willpower is something that is very much visible. Now, we're one of the fastest and the largest growing economies in the world. And we have like a very vital role to play when it comes to showing the world how sustainable development is something that can be easily achieved by making either minor changes or by making policy decisions, at a larger level that will have a trickle down effect. So, if you look at like I said in the beginning, are is economy and sustainability an oxymoron or a synonymous? So if you look at the example of Kerala, where there was a sand mining ban, the manufacturing sector in Kerala did take a hit, but because of that, a lot of other industries, a lot of resources, and the biggest the biggest resource of all, that is human life, that was saved. So that was a trade-off that happened there. But if you look at the national solar mission that India launched, that we want to produce 450 gigawatts of power before 2030, that is something that has led to the creation of the International Solar Alliance as well, where India is leading the charge to show people how solar energy is something that can be a very easily available power resource, and it can be used to ensure clean energy being promoted everywhere else. Modera, that happened right now, is one of the best examples I could ever give. Now, environment challenges that have come forth before us. All of us know, we're all. I'm based out of Delhi currently, and I can vouch that while we were expecting a lot of heat right now, there's there's winters in the morning, it's somehow raining in the afternoon, and it gets really hot by the evening. Similarly, we during the COVID pandemic, we saw how Australia went through with wildfires and heat waves. Japan and US, Turkey especially recently, Turkey and they faced a very horrific earthquake there. So these are a lot of environmental challenges that are slowly coming forth before the G20 nations, and climate change has now become something that every single country in the world is worried about. So how do we take it forward? How is something that, because development is a cycle that cannot be stopped. The path that humanity has set upon on is one that leads to instantaneous growth now. There's something that I like to say, that the only constant today is change, as paradoxical as it may sound. So, how do you ensure that this change does not also bring about the end of humanity, or it does not lead to causing more and more harm to our climate and and to our surroundings? So, what have we done so far? So, in the recently held ECSWG meeting, the groups finalized on the following three priorities. That we can do the arresting of land degradation. We accelerate our ecosystem restoration, and we enrich our biodiversity. Now, what does this basically mean? The projects that lead to harming the land, or they lead to a lot of deforestation, is something that needs to be stopped with an immediate effect. We have to work on accelerating our ecosystem. One of the most beautiful examples I could think of, and it's something that I saw recently, are the green bus stands that they've I think it was in Australia, if I'm not wrong, where they have filled up huge tanks of water, and they have introduced algae in those tanks, which consume consume enough carbon dioxide that is equivalent to 2 10-year-old trees, and they're doing this at every bus stop possible. So this is the way that they're reducing the carbon footprint that is being created, and ensuring that there's more and more oxygen that goes out there. And these are very simple solutions. These are very innovative solutions, but these are solutions that work, and these are solutions that can be easily implemented. The third thing was enriching our biodiversity, which is obviously protecting our wildlife, protecting the flora and fauna around us, reintroducing extinct animals if you can. Like India had recently lost all its cheetahs, but we've reintroduced cheetahs into the Indian biodiversity. Thereby, we've also we're enriching our biodiversity again, creating an entire new food chain, protecting said food chain again. The G20 Bali, the last G20 presidency was with Indonesia, and the Bali Leaders Conference, they reaffirmed their commitment towards access to energy and scaling up zero to low emission power. They did again reaffirm G20's commitment to to achieve land neutrality by 2030 and reduce the land degradation by 2040. So these are some of the pointers that the G20 nation has already taken in order to ensure that we're able to address our environmental challenges easily. If we look at the Paris Agreement in 2022, all the G20 leaders agreed to pursue the objective of limiting global temperature increase. They wanted to stop it back to 1.5. This basically meant that every single leader in the world is now agreeing to one simple fact, that climate change has to be tackled, and it has to be done through a proper and effective implementation of the Paris Agreement. We saw that again in G20 Rome summit, where the leaders pledged for nature, and they set a 30 by 30 target. That at least 30% of global land and 30% of global ocean should be conserved and protected very well by 2030. So these are a lot of the lot of really good initiatives that have been taken, but the implementation of which is we're seeing is becoming a little slow. That is where India has sort of come into the picture. That we have managed to achieve our target of I think of achieving our the solar energy plans. I think we have achieved that 9 years ahead of schedule. So how have we done that? So when we speak of how India is leading these sustainable development goals, we can look at a couple of initiatives. These initiatives will come on later in my slides, but I would rather speak on them now because it makes sense. We have seen Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which is there to provide free and compulsory education. There is Rashtriya Madhyamik Shiksha Abhiyan, which is again access to secondary education. We have skill development opportunities. We have the Digital India. We have Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, which has now become synonymous with protecting climate all across the globe. The Gandhi spectacles have become a symbol that is known to every single individual, at least in India and even to a larger extent abroad. We have a lot of new schemes and policies coming out for protecting our farmers in the way of Samman Nidhi, in the way of Jan Dhan Yojana, in the way of Ujjwala, to provide LPG connections to ensure that there is no more firewood burning. Now, these are just some of the examples too of how India is striving to achieve, inclusive and sustainable development for its people. No, we're also committed to enhancing our contribution to the global climate action. Now, when you look at the Paris Agreement, it we set the most ambitious target there of all the nations that were present. That is to reduce our emissions by 35%
আমি মুখের উপর
by
বললাম কিছু করার
2030.
নেই, বিকজ তোকে এই জিনিসগুলো ইয়ে করতেই হবে, ইমপ্লিমেন্ট করতেই হবে।
From the 2005 levels,
সারা দোকানের কথা বলছি, ঈশানী
these are
কেউ না,
sharing
এভরিওয়ান
the non-fossil fuels
মানে সিনিয়রদের
generation to 40% by 2030. And mind you, we have already achieved that. That's something that we've already achieved, and we're moving forward, barreling forward, I would rather say.
সানা দেখ,
And
সানা
showing the globe how
2
it's
মিনিট
something
দেখ,
that is
তারপর কাজ
very
কর, দাঁড়া
important.
শোন।
Now,
ইউ উইল
when
গো
you
টু
look
আ
at
কলেজ অর আ ফর্ম, ঠিক আছে?
how
বুঝিস তো?
we've gone to founding an entire international solar alliance, which is basically a coalition of all the solar rich countries in the nation, to how we've also now started exploring hydropower, to how we've started exploring wind energy, to how we've created the world's first an all solar village globally. So these are basically, I would say, milestones that we're achieving and showing it to the world that development is not necessarily not necessarily dependent on destroying our climate. It is something that can be go hand in hand. Now, when we look at the let's take like a small look at the environmental policies, how they have been impacting our economical growth, or if they have been decreasing our economical growth. A lot of the people believes that when you look at environmentally sound solutions, or when you go for environmentally sound policies, they will ultimately lead to increasing of cost and decreasing of profits. But that, I would rather, that's not really true, because if you look at the numbers, if you look at the stone cold data, when we look at manufacturing sector, they say manufacturing will be the one that will be the worst hit. Employment has gone down less than 1%. The decrease in employment is less than 1%, and I wouldn't really chalk that 1% up also to sort of the climate change policies that have been brought in. That 1% is a variable that in such huge industries you can't really account for everything. It's not a sigma 6 it's not a sigma 6 policy that you can predict it to the last to the last person. These variables will always keep on changing, and that's something that has to be taken care of. If you look at foreign direct investment, India has actually attracted more foreign direct investment after investing in clean and green energy than before, because it shows our commitment to ensuring a sustainable and a long running way of things, rather than investing in short term profit. And that is why when it comes to anything related to climate, today India itself has become synonymous with someone who can provide solutions, who can help us see the way forward. These were some of the initiatives that I spoke about. You have Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, there's electric vehicles, there's Namami Gange. Green energy, we've just allocated 35,000 crores for that. Life challenge is something that again India gave to the entire world, and it's a dream project of our honorable Prime Minister. So while ending, I would just like to say this thing, that we believe in the principle of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which is the world is one family. This is the theme of India's presidency this year. So through this presidency, what we hope to do is to foster a greater cooperation and solidarity between the G20 nations, to address the common challenges of our time, because all that India wants to do is to bring all these people to the table and to tell them that this is what we're facing, this is what we're doing, and this is what we hope all of us can come together. Friends, as we enter the decade of action, or so I like to say, because there's a lot of promises, there's a lot of challenges, and there's a lot of hope in the coming decade. There's a lot of new initiatives that will come to fruition by the time we reach 2020, 2030. India itself will be at 120, 40.
দেখতে পারি না তোকে এভাবে।
So I like to call this the decade, that will balance all the three cogs of development, that is economic, social, and environment.
ঠিক আছে, বাট হ্যাঁ
I am the chair for Industry 4.0, and something that comes under that is also innovation. That is something that is extremely we need to foster innovation and collaboration, so that we're able to leverage the technology that exists today, the finance that exists today, the partnerships that we forge today, and we have to make sure that no one is left behind, that everyone has a voice and a stake in the future. One example that I'd like to give is I had recently gone for a Y20 consultation university, and there was a young startup there. They had just started out 2 years ago, and they manufactured manhole covers. Now, manhole covers extremely important. They ensure that no animal, no human falls down below the manhole. They ensure that the entire surrounding is kept clean. Now, an average manhole cover made of cast iron costs 9,000 rupees, but they manufactured one out of plastic, and it was able to take up to 10 times more weight than the one made out of cast iron at the meager cost of 1,800 rupees. Now, this is a very small change, but it's a sustainable business model, and it is something that is helping, not only the environment, that is helping not only the economy, but they were also using artisans from a village, they dropped a village. It's also providing employment in these areas. So, we need to foster such innovation and collaboration, because these small things will have, wide-reaching impact. We have a unique opportunity to lead these G20 nations. It's a unique responsibility that we have to lead these G20 nations, and we have to lead by example, because while India is currently the leader of the global south, and we've also taken on the mantle of Vishwaguru, the global north does have the resources right now. They do have access to the resources, they do have access to the capabilities, and we have the influence to make a difference. All of us collectively, have a duty to uphold the values and, to hold up the principles of solidarity and cooperations that sort of underpin the 2030 agenda. So I would like to end by saying that we should stand ready to work with all the other nations and all the other partners that we have to work towards a more peaceful, prosperous, and a sustainable world. I think I'm just going to end my speech here. I would much more appreciate a dialogue than a monologue. I've already spoken for a long time, but I would like to open it up to questions now. Questions, commentaries.
अबे ना
if you have read our white paper and there's something that you wish to contribute to the same, I'd be open to all of it.
হয়ে গেছে, চল সরিয়ে দিচ্ছি, ভেঙা দিয়া।
Oh, yeah, sure.
ঠিক ঠিক ঠিক।
Okay, I think I'm unable to share the slides again. Is there something in the host controls?
তুই মাইন্ড করিস না স্যার, না মুখটা দেখা, মাইন্ড কর প্লিজ করিস না, কারণ আমাকে দেখো, তোমাকে আমি কথা বলছি ল প্রফেশন, আমি যেটা দেখলাম আছে মুখের উপরে একটা কথা বলে জানিস তোর, যে ল প্রফেশন এমন প্রফেশন না যেটার মধ্যে তুই এই জিনিসটা আজকে দেখছিস তো তোদের জুনিয়রকে দিয়ে কাজ করাচ্ছে, উনি তো জুনিয়রকে দিয়ে কাজ করালো। He was committing offense. বুঝতে পারছিস তো? ম্যাম বললো এটা যে তুমি এটা ফার্স্ট দেখছো তো তুমি আরো
Sir, you can share the PPT with us and we can reshare from our device if it is fine with you.
law profession
I'm sure if one of you could
It's
drop
about
me your
profession,
email ID, I'll share it with you.
Right, dropping it in the chat box.
দেখো তোমাকে একটা কথা বলছি ল প্রফেশন ইজ নট ইভেন ফর মি আমারও পছন্দ আমারও খুব যে একদম হচ্ছে না বাট আমি এখন হয়ে গেছি there is nothing for you there is nothing for us as a human being nothing is perfect for us আমরা যদি আমাদের মাইন্ডসেটটা হচ্ছে যদি আমরা 24 আওয়ার্স ঘুমিয়ে কাটাতে পারি সেটাই মানুষের ভালো থাকবে তাই তো হ্যাঁ না এটা সবার ভাই এটা সবার 24 আওয়ার্স আমরা ঘুমিয়ে কাটাতে পারলে ভালো থিং ইজ you have entered আঙ্কেল তোকে বলে যে কলেজ চেঞ্জ করবে না তো অপশন নেই
Okay, I've shared it with you.
তো অপশন নেই তোকে করতে হবে আমি তো মুখের একটা কথা বলছি you will be sexually harassed when you enter court তোকে এখন ইন্টার্নশিপে না when you enter after 5 years you will be sexually harassed বা তোকে করবে না তোকে বলবে আমার মানে জুনিয়র কোনো সিনিয়র তোকে বলবে আমার সঙ্গে করো মুখের উপর তোকে বলছি দিস ইজ দ্য ট্রুথ ঈশানীর বাবা কেন ওকে চাইনি যে ল প্রফেশনে যা এই কারণে আমি চাই না তুই ইয়েতে দিকে যা লয়ের দিকে যা আমি চাই জুডিশিয়ারির দিকে তুই চলে যা
Okay, I think it's working again. Thank you. Yeah, this is the slide.
আমি চাই তুমি জুডিশিয়ারির দিকে চলে যাও এই কারণে আর এখন তো নতুন হয়েছে ছেলেদেরকেও ছাড়ে না ইউ হার্ড দ্য কেস না ছেলেদের
That works.
ব্যাক হলে মেয়েরা
Yes.
ওটাও এখন ছাড়ে না
Okay, so do we have any more questions? Should I stop presenting?
ওই তুই মাইন্ড করেছিস
Sir, I had one question.
Yes.
So, how do we get the finance? Because India is neither a developed country nor a, in the least developed category. How do we already the funds are very less? How do we get the funds for mitigation and adaptation?
Okay, that's a good question. See, when we talk about getting funds for climate action, there's a lot of focus by the government now to encourage more and more people to move towards green and clean action. You know, where if you're talking about getting into clean energy, that's a space that is really open for people right now, and we have a lot of funds that are being made available by the government in the forms of grants, in the forms of partnership, in the form of
ওটা না হলে গভর্নমেন্ট লয়ার যদি একবার গভর্নমেন্ট লয়ার হয়ে যেতে পারিস না
and the Ministry of Earth Sciences that you can apply to. I'd recommend that you check out their websites. Coming to the private sector of it, private sector yes is a little bit iffy to move towards green energy. But then again, when we now look that the government has given permission to PSUs and to small bodies to use their the CSR funds that they have to fund projects that work towards climate, that work towards that is something where you will normally finance. That those are the areas where you will be able to attract investors, and you will be able to get the capital that you need to get your initiative rolling.
If you are trying to speak anything, you are not audible. You can type whatever query you have in the chat box, and I will read that out for you.
Good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Tell me.
Thank you so much for such an amazing session, sir. My question is, sir, do you not think, sir, that India's population growth is currently a major threat to climate change? Because population is growing so faster, so we have to build lots of flats or houses for them, and we have to cut down forests, and that's the problem. And also sale of private cars or bikes will increase, and lots of people cannot travel in public transport. So, sir, if we increase the public transport, it is a very, very grateful thing for climate changing issues. So, how do you want to address this issue? Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. See, I sort of see population I am speaking on through two different lenses right now. One, I speak as the chair of Future of Work. So when I speak as a chair of Future of Work, population is something that I see as a resource. I see it as a great potential for India because there's a recent BCG study that said every Indian born after 2000 will spend somewhere around $240,000 in his entire lifetime. India is 60% young right now. We're youngest on the planet all the way up to 2070. When you multiply that number of 240,000 by close to 1.3 billion people, that is the size of Indian market. That is the size of Indian markets. Now that is something that I see as a boon. That is the way that India is going to dominate the global markets. But when I talk about when you bring in the climate part of the climate issue into it, yes, it does raise a worrisome question in front of us. But then again, given the fact how globally demanded the Indian workforce is, and with areas with far-reaching areas in Canada, Russia now becoming habitable for people, and with globalization encouraging the movement of people everywhere, and you see multinationals being led by Indians all around. I see this as a way that it's time for the Indian workforce to take over how things work globally. You have the semiconductor industry coming back into India. You have a lot of other industries that earlier left India because of the lack of I would say either willpower or for the lack of basic government basic government partnerships with industries. But those things are happening now again. So while population control does become a little bit of an issue, it's something that is manageable, and it is something that we see resolving itself slowly as we go forward, I believe. And coming to your second question, absolutely, public transport is something that has to be encouraged. That's why every single tier 1, tier 2 city that we see today has now a metro being built into it, or has now being further railway lines being led into it. Especially the northeast, which was earlier disconnected from the other states, has now has a beautiful connectivity going on, where we have multiple railway lines being built, we have multiple tunnels being built, we have new trains and new modes of transportation being introduced over there. So yeah, public transport is definitely the way forward. Somebody raised their hand.
Siddharth Singh, you can unmute and ask whatever query you have.
Good evening, sir. This is Siddharth Singh. Thank you for such a great opportunity. Sir, I have a question. Sir, our government have brought up various policies, laws for stopping the use of single-use plastic. But in this race of the sales of goods and products at a cheaper price, use of such single-use plastics are growing by day. Example, like we can take Amul company, mother dairy company, whose primary goods are itself a harm to the society. So how can we stop such things, even if the government is trying to do so? But it's not coming to the end, sir.
When you speak of primary goods, are you implying towards the milk or the packets that they come into?
Sir, the basic goods, the packets that they are providing the milk into.
Okay. Yeah, very well. That's a great point. That single-use plastic, the government has been cracking down on single-use plastic, and that's something that needs to be stopped at the earliest. Especially when you look at if you even look at the Tetra Paks that we get these days, you have paper straws coming in with them, but the paper straw is wrapped in a single-use plastic. With regards to milk bags, the milk bags are actually they're recyclable. That the issue is that a lot of people, the issue is of disposal, but a lot of people aren't disposing them correctly, which is leading them to finding them they find themselves on the streets and on the roads, and create harm for the environment. So I believe that we sort of need to drill back on the idea of re-informing, creating awareness amongst our people that these wastes should be disposed of in an efficient and a proper manner. You have municipality cars coming. I think in every single city. Indore is a beautiful example of it, where they've managed their entire waste system very efficiently and absolutely great. Recently, India had an All India Mayors Conference. I think it's there on YouTube. I'd recommend all of you to go back and check Indore's presentation on how they've managed their waste system. It's absolutely amazing, and that is something that should be taught. And I believe it should be taught starting at a primary level, where even every single kid, every single parent is made to realize that this is something that has to be taken care of at an individual level. Because at an industry level, when we talk about bringing change at an industry level, that change is happening slowly. Vendors have stopped giving out plastic bags. You have paper straws coming out instead of single-use plastic. I'm not saying that we're already there. I'm saying we're somewhere. We've begun the journey towards it, and we should be very close to achieving our goals.
Good evening, sir. Am I audible?
Yes. Good evening.
Sir, thank you very much for such a wonderful session. And this side Prashasti. And my question is regarding the recent report that was released in March between of IQA report of some Swiss company, and it states that about the top 50 polluted cities of the world, and India crosses the mark of more than 10 or 15 cities. Then what your view according to this report, and what are the key notes that should be taken, and where we lack by seeing this report?
When we take the AQI reports into account, definitely there are cities in India that have, for the lack of a better term, I would say, less than hospitable air. I reside in one such city. I'm in Delhi, so I know that feeling firsthand. But again, I believe that the AQI change has to be brought about. To bring AQI change, I'll circle back to the first thing that I said. There's a lack of willpower there. There's a lack of political willpower, to say the least. Especially when we look at the cities that we have been published in that list. There is a need for people to come together. There's a need for our state governments to understand that if the central government is focusing so much on clean energy, they should become partners in it, and they should wholeheartedly support these initiatives and come up with innovations of their own as to how they are able to settle the pollutants in the air, of how they are able to bring down the AQI and make the air clean and livable for the people that are residing in these cities. Because we have the national capital. I think recently we also saw Mumbai going into that list, despite Mumbai having a coastline. So these areas have to be taken into consideration. We can't have a national capital, the financial capital of our nation, enveloped in air of smog and pollutants. That is something that has to be addressed on an alarming rate. And I believe that several steps have already been taken in Mumbai. With be it water can, the sprinkler cannons to settle down the dust and other pollutants, to industries, crack down on industries that are violating the environmental guidelines. So that's something that has to be done. And again, climate change is not something where you can say that we've arrived. I believe like when we talk about industry 4.0, or we talk about the economic growth, or that we can't say $3 trillion economy, it's done. What's next? Climate change is a cycle that will keep on going endlessly, and that's a battle that all of us have to collectively fight together on a daily basis. So again, yeah, that's pretty much what I'd like to say.
Sir, what are the major changes that government will take in next coming years for reaching of the target of COP27?
See, I can't really comment on the fact that what changes the government will take, because none of us have seen the future, neither have I. But I can speak to what I hope that the government. I hope the government makes these changes, and it's something that can be seen moving forward, where we are reaffirming our commitment to ensuring that the global climate levels, the temperature change doesn't go beyond 1.5 degrees, where India is again, rallying the world to move towards clean energy, to green energy, towards non-fossil fuels, where we have tier 3 city, tier 4 cities in India that will start moving towards completely away from maybe even LPG, and then start moving towards independent power generation methods. For example, I come from the city of Vadodara, which is the cultural capital of Gujarat, and a beautiful thing about Vadodara is that a lot of the industrial units and a lot of the you know domestic houses have now installed their own solar generation panels, and that's led to them being independent in terms of energy generation, and the government is actually paying them for the additional energy that they generate, which is not used by that particular house. So maybe in the future we see a lot more cities and a lot more rural areas moving towards this way. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, sir. This is Tanya Singh. Thank you for this wonderful session, sir. My question is that recently the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, they published their assessment report 6th. So my question goes like this, that in this report it was said that if we reach the global temperature to 1.5, then it would be disastrous. India is among the G20 nations. So we have taken various steps. We are on this 21st March also. I, along with my team, we planted around 100 of plants. But when, especially during the festivals like Diwali, we come across the situation that the retailers are basically prevented from selling the crackers. And also, many times I stay in Lucknow, so the plastic bags are banned, the polythene bags that we usually see during by going shopping and all. So why we stop at the stage of retailer? Why don't we stop at the stage of production itself? If the production will be controlled, ultimately the retailers won't be able to sell it. What happens, what I have observed and what I have seen, that when it is stopped at the retailer stage, the people who come to investigate, they take some sort of bribe, I must say, and they just clean it, and again the plastics are used, again the crackers are sold, and this is the reason why after Diwali we see fog in Delhi, even after so much strictness is there that no crackers should be sold. So government should take a step over the production stage rather controlling the retailers.
First of all, I'd like to applaud you and your team for planting, for doing a plantation drive. That is something that is very much needed. So great job on that. Coming to your point of why we should stop the production of crackers completely instead of cracking down on retailers. So, I'd like to delve into that issue a little bit deeper. First of all, when we talk about cracking down on retailers, we're cracking down on the retailers that are, often selling either illegal firecrackers, that are selling smuggled firecrackers, that are selling firecrackers that have come from, companies like China. Coming to the part two of that thing, as to why production should not production should be stopped. You cannot really completely close down an industry that provides employment to hundreds, if not thousands, of indigenous workers who have been doing this, who've been creating crackers for the nation for generations now. When you talk about industrial standards, they are ensured that every single firecracker that comes, the Indian government has a panel that has a set of standards, and all those crackers that are made by Indian companies, that are manufactured in India and that are sold by these retailers. These retailers are never harassed. They're never cracked down upon as such, and it would lead to a great economic loss to the nation as well. Coming to point number 3, as to how we see a smog around Delhi after Diwali, Again, that is something that I personally don't agree with, because Diwali as a festival is not celebrated only in the national capital of India. It is celebrated across the nation. So when you say that there is a smog that is developed around Delhi purely because Diwali happens, or there is bursting of firecrackers after it, that is absolutely not true. Because if that was the case, then Gujarat would also have a circle of smog around it. Maharashtra would also have a circle of smog around it. Uttar Pradesh would also have a circle of smog around it. Goa would also have a circle of smog around it. Karnataka would also have a circle of smog around it. The entire Northeast would also have a circle of smog around it. That is simply not true. But again, then I really don't want to get into the politics of it or go into a political debate right now. So I would stick to the fact that we need to crack down and we need to stop the sale of illegal firecrackers that are smuggled in from neighboring nations, and firecrackers that do not adhere to safety code and standards that is set by the Indian government. These are the firecrackers that must be stopped. The industries that are prevailing and existing in India from generations, who provide a lot of employment to indigenous workers over there, is something that should be encouraged. Because understand, the firecrackers are not only used during Diwali, they're also used during New Year's, they're also used during birthdays, they're also used during weddings. So this is a huge industry that comes into play, and not just it doesn't boil down to a matter of couple of days. Something that happens for that keeps on going for the entire year.
16 minutes.
Sir, but polythene production could be stopped.
আগে কনস্টিটিউশনটা শেষ করে দিই আগে, ঠিক আছে? কারণ বাকি
We need to create a sustainable replacement for polythenes. Right now, what the best that we're doing and the best we can do is we've stopped single-use plastics, and we're encouraging recyclable plastics right now. Because again, plastic has become a very important part of almost every single industry that exists today. In a utopian world, it would be great to ban plastic in a single day and be done with it. But you need to realize that from the water pipe that is put into your house to the bag that you carry to your carry to work, to the simple packaging of tea that comes into your house, everything is plastic. So it's not feasible to ban plastic in a single day and be done with it. It has to be phased out in a very systematic manner, while ensuring that there is a
workplace reservation.
So, we see that single-use plastics have been done away with. We need to now encourage either more biodegradable form of plastics that have recently come up, or recyclable plastics that can be recycled into something.
Sir, I want to add one thing. You talked about that firecracker business is a very huge market. Okay. But sir, if we see that it is a seasonal market, whereby the production of firecracker is more in the months near to the October till Jan 5th. And after that, the firecracker market comes down. And if we stop the production of firecrackers, it will impact our business. I agree that, but for a long term, if we see, it will definitely help us to establish a sustainable development, and even not only the country but the world.
Interesting, but I would again respectfully disagree here, because while the consumption may spike during the months of October to January, the consumption happens throughout the year. That is something the multiple studies that exist out there as well. I'm not happy to recommend a couple of them that people should read up on them. Now, talking about sustainably developed nations, I hardly believe right now firecrackers are the major barrier that stop us from being a sustainably developed nation. Firecrackers as an industry, the manufacturing happens in the months that lead up to this, then they become seasonal workers as well. A lot of the indigenous workers that manufacture these firecrackers are also agricultural laborers, also they often work in different sectors such as Gram and Dak Sevaks, or becoming and a lot of other things. So when you take down an industry that has been providing income to a group of artisans for generations, you are not only taking away that part of that particular culture, you're not only creating an economic loss to the nation, but you are also ensuring that and, but you're also ensuring that no other industry that has that has developed
আমার
over
সামনে
the
কিন্তু
ages
চেঞ্জ যেও
that
না,
might
আমার
have
সামনে চেঞ্জ হতে যেও না কিন্তু,
that
আমার সামনে চেঞ্জ
might
হতে না প্লিজ।
seem like it creates problems for that creates problems to the economy or to sustainable development in general. It will create a precedent for shutting down those industries as well, and that is not something that we can. Currently, the world's largest market of firecrackers and illegal firecrackers, might I add, is in China. The second largest market comes from the United States of America, and
পার্সোনালিটি
these are
চেঞ্জ
the
করতে
nations
বলছে
that
মানে
have
দেখ,
that have led that
আমি
have
আজকে
created way
পার্সোনালি
more
তোর সঙ্গে যতটা জোভিয়াল হতে পারি,
pollution
যেভাবে তোর
causing
সঙ্গে কথা বলতে পারি, আমি সেটা
firecrackers
কলেজে
and
পারবো না।
and different kinds of
You need to do this because তুই একটা কথা বল,
rockets and etc.
I
that
have
have
seen
created a lot
since
of
like
these issues.
one
But when
version
it comes
since
to
day one,
Indian firecrackers, they're
obviously
very
আমি সেটা
minimalistic. They're
ভাববো যে না স্যার আমার কাছে
they're
অমনি
just
থাকবে।
made to ensure that you enjoy your occasion and not really create a
তুই
mess.
প্রফেশনাল লাইফে পার্সোনাল লাইফটা ইয়ে কর, কলেজে ঢোকার সঙ্গে সঙ্গে একটু আস্তে আস্তে ইয়ে হয়ে যা। But
Yes, sir, I agree with you too. And don't you think, sir, like vehicles are like more like pollute than firecrackers? Like there is no need to ban firecrackers. Rather than like vehicles are like more like pollute than firecrackers throughout the year.
Absolutely, we do need to get a control on our carbon footprint. By encouraging more and more public transport, by encouraging more in by encouraging people to carpool to work, or when we talk about companies, they should encourage their employees to use the company shuttle. Talking about big industries in general, these are the areas that we should rather shift our focus to ensure that industries are committed to the environment and have a crackdown on illegal mining that happens in parts of the nation. These are the areas that we should shift our focus to, and should be stopped with an immediate effect, because for profit they have been causing a lot of harm to the nation. They've been causing a lot of harm to the environment, and those are the real barriers that stand between India and sustainable development.
Don't mix those two. Professional is for college, personal is for home.
Yes. Hello, sir. So my name is Madhurima Das, and I would like to thank you for this great session. So my question is, so what is, in your opinion, what do you think is the role of young people and civil society organizations play in promoting a more balanced approach to the economic growth and the environmental stability?
See, I am of this belief that it's the youth of a nation that brings about any change that is possible. It is the youth of the nation. It's the responsibility of the youth of the nation to innovate, to bring about new ideas, and to ensure that they hold the older generations accountable. So when we talk about the role of young people and civil societies, it is very important that we ask questions, that we listen to our own suggestions, and that we continuously ensure that everything that has been that has been put out on a global level or on a national level or a state level or a district level has youth participation in it.
16-1
it's something that I'm very that I personally as an individual feel proud of, that Y20 negotiations that happened over the past years in every single presidency under any other nation were limited to closed door meetings in the capital of the city with a few select individuals. It's for the first time in India that we've taken our presidency to the grassroots, where we've been explicitly told and asked to go and interact with the youth of the nation. And this talk is a brilliant example of the same, where we want solutions from the youth. We want solutions from the youth of India to tell us that what do they expect should be set at an international level. What do you feel is something that should be put forth in front of the G20 nations? I'm sorry, could you repeat the second part of your question?
Yes, sir. So, like, what do you think that civil society organizations like for a more balanced situation, what can we do like that?
With regards to civil society organizations, the best part that you can do is you have the mandate and you have the field work wherever wherever the civil society decides and
Yes, sir.
improve situations. A lot of the times, government is not able to reach certain places, but civil societies are able to reach, and that is the power of civil societies. Civil societies can not only do great work, but they can also pitch into a lot of the decisions that the government wants to take. So, if you take a look, recently we had a national youth policy of the nation coming in, where we had a lot of civil society organization and young people be a part of the nationwide consultation that happened. That led to a huge document that was submitted to the Ministry of Youth Affairs. I think something similar happened in Madhya Pradesh recently, where the state has just released its state youth policy.
হ্যাঁ আমি দেখছি দিদি আমি দেখছি আমি দাঁড়াও
Climate change. But this is something civil societies now need to encourage states and the national government to come up with an environment policy of its own. To see how they can contribute to this, how young people
দিদি পড়াতেন তাই তো জানি এরপর এখন কি করেন জানি না কারণ কোচ নিয়ে চলে আসবো
take the charge for leading it forward.
Thank you, sir.
দিদি আমাকে একটু সময় দেন দেখে বলছি তোমাকে দিদি
Mohana, you can unmute and ask your
ঠিক আছে
query.
ঠিক আছে বাই দিদি
Good evening, sir.
আরে
I
দিদি
have a
থ্যাঙ্কস এর
question.
কি আছে আমি
That
দেখছি
is, what role do you see in innovation and technology playing in achieving the sustainable economic growth? And also,
Hello?
how can G20 countries work together to promote the development and deployment of these technologies?
দিদি
Speaking about how technology
আরে প্রফেসর চাই কিছু না
and so I believe that tech right now is
না
the
মানে একটা
biggest,
চেনা শোনা কেউ থাকে তো আমার একজন আছে আমি
we
তাই
have a lot of
বলছি আমি
things that are
দেখছি
happening digitally and to ensure
আমি
that
কেন প্রফেসর দেব
the stays safe.
কি হয়েছে
All the countries have now started submerging their data centers into the ocean to create to ensure that they're cooled by the ocean and
বাবা
this
এত
led
কিছু
to less consumption of energy.
আরে
that
চিল
is
করো
in
জিন্দেগি মে
terms
থোড়া
of data and
ল্যাপটপ চার্জ হচ্ছে না কেন
to protect the entire system better.
আচ্ছা না ঠিক আছে
So just one of the
আচ্ছা
examples.
আচ্ছা চলো
You
ব্যাক করতে
have,
চলো আচ্ছা 16 ওয়ানটা
brilliant
শোন
work, like I said, there's
16
Australia
one
how they
হচ্ছে
put up those bus stands where algae
Easy
has
to
been
on God.
consuming carbon dioxide and producing oxygen. So a lot of these initiatives are happening, but they're happening in silos.
পিকচার বাটা
So there's a greater need for collaboration within the G20 nations, and that is something that India aims to push. If you look at the two major sort of
আরে এই বইটা কেনস আর এটা লাগবে
goals
তো
that India has taken apart from every single agenda or committee that India has set forward, that is protection of environment and protecting and empowering women-led development. These are two things that the India has set as sort of the sub themes for this presidency this year. And that is why every single engagement group is coming, is having its meetings and these summits that are happening. Environmental protection and how to sort of promote green energy is an agenda that is kept in every single working group. Is an agenda that has been kept, and the entire point is that if we're bringing all of these people to one table, it might as well be that India be able to show them what it has been doing in terms of clean energy and how we can lead the world to get there. We've had Paris Agreement, we have multiple bilateral and multilateral talks and agreements, but those things have been happening at a slow pace. So the entire idea is that when we have the presidency this year, maybe we can expedite things a bit.
Thank you so much, sir.
Pratiksha Mishra. Pratiksha, your hand is raised. If you have a query, you can ask that. Sir, there is one more question by Pratiksha in the chat box.
Okay.
It says, rightly propound the population of India, but when the question comes to the equal distribution of resources to all the masses, we still fall across the question of corruption level in our country. So how can we address this menace from our country?
Okay. First of all, Pratiksha, there is a very common misconception. I believe you mean equity in terms of distribution of resources, not equal distribution of resources. Because equal distribution of resources would again lead to inequality, and that's something that a lot of people will start protesting again. When I say equal distribution of resources, I mean that every single individual on this call would receive the same amount of resources, irrespective of their economic levels. But if it, taking economic levels into consideration to ensure that everybody comes to the same level, that's equity, and that's not equal. So yes, there is a question of with rising population, there is a question of the lack of resources that happens. But when we talk about corruption, that's something that has drastically come down. That's something that the government has managed to entirely get away with the middleman. Now I work in the Ministry of Communication, so I believe I do speak with the authority that when we say the postal payment bank accounts that exist in the farthest areas of the nation, when we send in any X amount as part of any single scheme of the government, 100% of that reaches that particular beneficiary. 100% of that gets into the hand of the last person standing, the last mile. So that is something that I would say is not a major concern. Corruption levels are not a major concern. When we talk about the distribution of resources, yes, that is a concern. But then again, it has come to a point where we need better implementation, and we need a better supply chain that ensure that all these resources reach the last person. We've gone above the point where India doesn't have the resources to send out to its people. We saw that very well during the second during the horrific waves of pandemic that we went through, where the government did manage to send in a lot of
এমপ্লয়মেন্ট ধরে না আমরা যে এই লিগ্যাল ইন্টার্নশিপ গুলো করি অনেক কটা এমপ্লয়মেন্ট কন্ডিশনস থাকে যে তুমি 4 বা 5 ইয়ারে পড়ছো কিনা এক্সেলেন্ট ড্রাফটিং স্কিলস এখানে দিল্লি থাকছো কিনা কলকাতা থাকছো কিনা এইসব থাকে দ্যাট ইজ ওয়ান প্রি কন্ডিশন ফর এমপ্লয়মেন্ট
and not the fact that we have a lack of resources
in respect of class or classes of employment or appointment to an office under.
If anyone else has any queries, you can
either type in the chat box or unmute and ask. Employment in respect of class.
Sir, what about climate changes laws? Like, don't we need like strict laws to stop climate change, and like they should be punishable according to law who are going to break the climate changes law? Then it will create fear in the mind of the people.
এই সপ্তাহের মধ্যে নিয়ে নে আমি মজা করছি না এখান থেকে অনেক
we need stringent laws when it comes to set of standards that the government has set for industries, and we need better enforcement of said law to ensure that nobody gets away with it. But I believe that's left up to the parliamentarians of the nation. We as the youth of the nation and as civil society organizations can definitely appeal and ask our respective members of parliament or write to the government about areas of concern and push for what we think is right or for what we believe in is right. That's a right that the nation has given us, and that's a right that has been well fought for. So there's something that I really like to say when anybody asks me what is my message sort of a thing, is that be curious, ask questions to the point that either you know most of it and you're able to recommend better things, or you keep asking until you do. So this is something that all of us should be doing. We should be holding our we should continuously be curious about these things, be asking questions, look for opportunities. As young professionals, all of us have a certain responsibility to the nation as well, and that's something that all of us should take very seriously.
Thank you very much.
Sir, I want to add something. There are certain laws that are being made by the parliament, like the Explosive Act 1884, whereby there is mentioned that the manufacturing, import and export should be done with a license group.
Yes, so while I said that we need better enforcement of said acts as well, there's a lot, because India has done tremendously well when it comes to either the promotion of green energy or towards ensuring that it holds its industries up to a certain standards, or I would rather say it holds its industry to standards that are better, almost at par or better than the international levels. So those already exist. We need a better implementation of those, and we need our industries to become cognizant of the fact that these standards agree, and they should vehemently adhere to that.
Rightly said, sir.
Anyone else has any query? guess we do not have any more queries. Before proceeding towards the end of the session, I would once request everyone to switch on their camera so that we can have a picture of everyone together in the session.
আচ্ছা শোন দেখ আমি তোকে একটা জিনিস বলছি
A gentle request, please switch on your cameras.
না এটা দেখ এটা শোন আমি তোকে একটা জিনিস পাঠাচ্ছি একটা ওয়েবসাইটটা পড় ভিডিও দেখে লাভ নেই দেখ আমি তোকে 16 গল্পটা বলছি দেখ 16(2)তে কি বলেছে যে কোনো ডিস্টিংশন করা যাবে না অন দ্য বেসিস অফ স্টেট 16(2)তে বলেছে না যে প্লেস অফ বার্থ রেসিডেন্স নিয়ে কোনো ডিস্টিংশন করা যাবে না 16(3) হচ্ছে ওটার একটা এক্সেপশন যদি পার্লামেন্ট চায় তাহলে একটা করতে পারে মানে কিরকম বলতে যদি পার্লামেন্ট চায় তাহলে হচ্ছে কোনো রুলস বানাতে পারবে
Good evening, sir.
ওই যে
Sir, my question is that when we talk about the concept of sustainability, we can't forget that due to sustainability, there has been some instance in past about the exploitations of the people. For example, somewhere in the article I read about the Tesla that the coming of the electric vehicle, they just want to material that is Kumar and they are just transporting it from the African countries where there are exploiting the people of there. So my question is that would you think so that the sustainability somehow also lead to exploitations of the people of the low developed countries and other indigenous people?
যদি পার্লামেন্ট চায় তাহলে গভর্নমেন্ট রুল বানাতে পারে যার জন্য হচ্ছে তোকে ওই মানে রেসিডেন্ট ওই জায়গাটা থাকা হচ্ছে
footing by the international union is something that
classes of employment
because sustainability doesn't necessarily mean sustainable development of United States of America does not mean the destruction of the continent of Africa. It's as simple as that. So when you when you undertake mining, are we sure that the mining is happening in to the standards? Are we sure it's not illegal mining? Are we sure that
SC plus ST মিলে ক্লাস
the people that are being taken advantage of over there
ওটাকেই বলছে তো যেটা বলছে যে মানে পার্লামেন্ট রুল বানাতে পারে যে কোনো তোমাকে এখানে থাকতেই হবে মানে ধরে নে ক্লাস অফ এমপ্লয়মেন্ট অর অ্যাপয়েন্টমেন্ট টু অ্যান অফিস মানে কোনো অফিসে মানে স্টেট গভর্নমেন্টের আন্ডারে কোনো অফিস বা ইউনিয়ন গভর্নমেন্টের কোনো অফিস বা ধরে নে
this is something that with the global north
মানে আর্টিকেল 16(1) আর 2 এর এক্সেপশন কিন্তু আর্টিকেল 16(3)
the global north
এখানে কি বলেছে এখানে তোমাকে ওই জায়গায় যদি পার্লামেন্ট চায় তোমাকে ওই জায়গাটা রুল একটা করে দিতে পারে তোমাকে ওখানে থাকতেই হবে ওই দুই জায়গাটা অ্যাপ্লাই করার জন্য ঠিক আছে
those days are now gone
এটা কোনো রিলেশন নেই যে পার্লামেন্ট এর রুলটা ক্লাস বা ক্লাসেস মানে ক্লাস ধরে অনেক কটা ক্লাস থাকে এমপ্লয়মেন্টে প্রফেসর মানে যেটা ম্যাম এক্সাম্পলটা দিয়েছিল না অ্যাসোসিয়েট প্রফেসর অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট প্রফেসর
মোহনা
দিয়েছিল তো
So what are some of the most promising strategies for promoting
এই এক্সাম্পলটা দিয়েছিল না অ্যাসিস্ট্যান্ট প্রফেসর
and how can the G20
অ্যাসোসিয়েট
nations work
প্রফেসর
together to share the best
ওটার
practices
মধ্যে কি ওটা ক্লাস বা ক্লাসেস অফ এমপ্লয়মেন্ট ব্যাপারটা
so the G20 communique that will be passed by the end of this year is the best way
পার্লামেন্ট ওইটা রিগার্ডে কোনো রুলস বানাতে পারে যেটার জন্য হয়তো যেই জায়গায় জব অ্যাপ্লাই করছে সেখানে থাকতে হবে
principles that they will work on going forward that they will collectively
16(4)টা পড়ে বা
ensure are implemented in a systematic manner. That is the way forward, I believe. So this year we have a very big responsibility on all of our shoulders to ensure that the world does agree with what India has to tell them. The world does listen to what India has to say, and the world, as it has, and as it has been for a while now, the world accepts India's leadership in taking the globe to a clean and a peaceful environment.
Madhurima.
So, what are some key policy and regulatory issues that need to be addressed, in order to promote sustainable economic growth, and how can these G20 countries work together to address these issues?
um, when it comes to the regulatory frameworks, I unfortunately don't come from a legal background, so I think all of you will be, be able to better educate me in terms of the regulatory frameworks and the laws that already exist. But speaking as to the policies that India has taken forward, or the policies that the world is taking forward, we have a lot of literature or a lot of agreements already existing, be it in the form of the G20 Leaders Declaration, be it in form of the G20 Leaders Declaration, be it in the form of Paris Agreement, be it in the form of sorry, be it in the form of the Guangzhou Summit Declaration. All these declarations have sort of reaffirmed the world's promise towards sustainable development and the world's commitment towards sustainable development. But it was after the Paris Summit, with the coming of the life model introduced by the Prime Minister, by India's ambitious target of achieving non-fossil fuel contribution to energy up to 40% by 2040. The world has now started treating the climate change issue seriously. The world has now started realizing that if India can do it, so can we. And if India is already doing so much for it, it becomes it has become an issue, at a global level. That if India is working very well towards sustainable development, why can't we, the so-called developed nations of the world, do it as well? And that is something that we should be really proud about. But we should also take cognizance of the fact that that puts a lot of responsibility on our shoulders, and ensure that we are able to do justice to said responsibility.
Yes, sir. Sir, G20 countries work together to promote sustainable consumption and production. So, what role do the consumers have to play in achieving this goal?
Pardon, I couldn't hear your question properly. Please repeat it.
Yes, sir. So, G20 countries work together to promote sustainable consumption and production. What role can the consumers play in achieving this goal?
What role can the consumers? So it again boils down to the very basic tenets of climate change. That be mindful of what you use, be mindful of the products that you buy. They are to a certain code that the government has laid forward. All those information, we live in a very fast age where now even a Google search has become outdated. We have AI models present out there to bring us properly formatted information. So we need to be mindful of the fact that of what we consume, of what we buy, of what we promote, and of what we share with other people as well. So these are some of the ways that consumers can play a decisive role, because when the consumers take a stand, or decide that they a certain product will not be consumed from here on forward because it doesn't adhere to environmental standards, the industry will be forced to adapt, to change, and to bring in products that are more environmentally sound.
Anyone else has any query? I guess there are no more queries now. So just the last request to everyone to please switch on their cameras once.
Next one, family problems. Honestly, bol. Car family problems nahi hamare bol. ওটা একটু এক্সট্রিমলি রিস্কি হয়ে গেছে, কিন্তু দেখ আমাদের ব্যাপার
Are we done?
Yes, sir. So we can proceed towards the ending of the session. So on behalf of the amicus curiae, I would like to express my sincere thanks for your presence in our session. Your insights and expertise were invaluable and greatly appreciated. And your presentation was really engaging, informative, and thought-provoking. And I'm sure that everyone present here has learned a great deal from your experiences and the perspectives. And the line that you spoke, which has struck me personally, was that only constant ways to change, as paradoxical as it may sound. So your ability to distill such complex statements very easily is truly impressive, and we feel fortunate to have the opportunity to hear from you on all these issues. So once again, I thank you for your time, insights, and passion for the session.
I am not a mama's
We are
boy.
grateful for the opportunity to have you here as a guest speaker, and we hope to have a chance to work with you again in our future. Thank you, sir, and thank you everyone for participating in the session.
Thank you so much, Amigas Curie, for having me, and thank you, Mansi, for continuously reminding me and being there. So thank you. Just
কিন্তু আমি proudly আমার ফ্যামিলি ট্রেডিশন কন্টিনিউ করতে যাচ্ছি।
This session is over. The participants are requested to kindly leave the meeting. Thank you for joining.
আমার অমনি কিছু ব্যাপার নেই ভাই। You know, our Indian constitution actually violates human rights. এই যে রিজার্ভেশনসগুলো বানায়, রিজার্ভেশনসগুলো হচ্ছে হিউম্যান রাইটসের ইয়েতে আছে, ভায়োলেটেড আছে, বাট কিছু করার নেই।
The participants are requested to leave the platform. The session is over.
আবার কি করলি তুই? শালা দাঁড়া